Good morning. Welcome. Happy Thursday. We are so glad you could join us virtually today. Thank you for doing so and giving up an hour and a half of your morning to learn about rent adjustments. My name is Jacqueline Rathbun. I serve KHRC as the Director of Contract Administration. And today's presentation that you're about to attend is only part one of two parts of Section 8's annual rent adjustments, presented by KHRC's lead PBCA finance officer, Sara Hall. I know many of you work with Sara with all your finance related tasks, but we have other members of our PBCA team that you work with as well. We have Wasini Hicks, Liz Gouge, and Cole Percival. They are all PBCA finance officers that are available to help process all your rent adjustments, special claims, contract renewals, and even answer your questions about vouchers. So a little housekeeping, of course. There will be training certificates that will be emailed out to all active attendees. You have to make sure you're registered to get one. So if you did and you're having some issues receiving that in the next couple of days, let me know. But they will be automatically generated from GoToWebinar and should receive those in the next couple of days. To limit distractions during the presentation, of course, all of you are on mute. All your mics have been muted and all your cameras have been turned off. We have tested the sound and the visuals on our end, so if you cannot hear or see us during the presentation, make sure you check your computer settings and speakers and things like that. We encourage questions. We hope you have several of them. So if you do have questions for Sara and the team during her presentation, please type your question into the questions feature box on your GoTo control panel. There will be several periods within the presentation, and of course at the very end for Sara and the team to answer all of those questions. So we also have several documents. So you should have received those handouts for this presentation in that 1 hour reminder email that you got this morning. But if not, they are uploaded to the handouts control panel on your GoTo control panel there. So all three of those are up there. That's all I've got for presentation announcements. So I'm going to turn it over to Sara. Thanks again for joining us.
Okay. Thanks, Jackie. Okay, welcome. I think this is now number 3 of our mini series training. So I'm very excited to be able to present to you all. Makes all of our jobs easier, and I enjoy doing this. So we're going to get started. This one, like Jackie said, is going to be part 1 of your annual rent adjustment. So there's going to be a lot of information we talk about today. And let's see how I get. Oh, sorry, trying to change my screen. There we go. A lot of information that we're going to talk about today. A lot of that's listed here. And there's also going to be a lot of information that we don't talk about today. So really encourage you to watch your emails for the second part 2 of this training. So for today, we're going to talk about what is an annual rent adjustment, who's eligible for those, anniversary dates, effective dates. In your handouts, you have what we call a 210-day notice letter. You have 4 of those. We're going to talk in detail about those letters and what all of that information means. In your handouts, you also have the rent adjustment checklist, excuse me, and the property contact form. And those are the other 2 documents that we're going to talk in detail about. Some other things that we'll talk about are if you need to request approval from HUD for something, we'll tell you how to do that. Procorem, how to upload, where to go, what the tasks are, how to mark them off, things like that. And then after that, what happens? We're going to talk about a little bit of how we process and how we notify you if things are incomplete. And then what happens after we have a complete package from you. Okay, next. There are a lot of acronyms, as you all probably have realized in this field of work, especially with HUD. These are just a few. Some of these are unique to KHRC. Some of these are acronyms from HUD. There is and Jackie, you may want to put that in the chat or somewhere, but there is an available document from HUD that shows you exactly what all of these acronyms mean. So a couple that I just want to point out that you'll see in my slides, RA, we shorten that, rent adjustment, RAC, rent adjustment checklist, and property contact form. We use those abbreviations a lot. Okay, any questions to start off? Normally I don't stop this early on, but just want to make sure if there's any questions to start off. And if not, I will keep going. Jackie, anything?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
We don't have any yet. I was searching for the HUD acronym website
Okay.
that I'm going to post you in a second, but no questions yet, so you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what is a rent adjustment? A rent adjustment is an adjustment to your Section 8 contract rent. This happens every year during the term of your HAP contract. So you all are in long-term, most of you all are in long-term contracts with HUD, and so every year we're going to adjust those contract rents. Each state has a contract administrator who's assigned to make those adjustments for the project-based Section 8 properties across the country. So this webinar, I want to be very specific in that we're going to talk about the processes that Kansas Housing uses to adjust your rents. Now, all contract administrators have to do it the same way according to HUD guidelines, but there are some unique things to Kansas Housing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And so just know that the series of processes and procedures we're going to talk about will not necessarily be the same if you have one of these properties in a different state. Okay, how are rents adjusted? During your annual rent adjustment, which I want to make clear, this is different than when we adjust your rents at the time of a renewal. So that will be next year. We'll talk about contract renewals. During the rent adjustment, contract rents will be adjusted by the published OCAF factor, a budget-based adjustment, or the market using a rent comparability study. So one of these three ways is how we're going to adjust your rents. Who is eligible for a rent adjustment? Everyone is eligible for a rent adjustment. The type is going to depend on your contract option. And again, we will talk in great detail about all of these options next year at our contract renewal training. Bottom line is that every option is eligible for an OCAF. Now, you hear anniversary date versus effective date a lot. We use that terminology. They are oftentimes used interchangeably, but they're really talking about two different things. So your expiration date of your HAP contract is going to determine the anniversary date of your rent adjustments. So for example, if your HAP contract expires on July 31st, 2021, your anniversary date of your rent adjustments are going to be 8/1. So every August 1st, your rents will be adjusted. Now that anniversary date is going to determine the effective date of your annual rent adjustment. So that means if you have an 8/1 anniversary date, the rent adjustment will take place that next year annually on 8/1. Any questions so far? That was not a lot of information right off, but I just want to make sure if there's any questions so far that we get those answered.
I don't have any yet.
Okay, we will keep going.
Yeah.
What's that?
We'll have other times for people to ask them if you get them.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the 210-day notice letter. So this is in your handout. You should have 4 of these. They're blank copies. This is what we use as our templates when we prepare these letters. But wanted to provide those to you so that you could kind of see exactly what is in them, and we'll talk about each thing. So this is the start of the rent adjustment process for us. So we keep track of all of your anniversary dates, and when it's time, we will send you a letter, and that's going to be issued about approximately 210 days before your rent adjustment effective date. That's where the 210 comes in. This letter is specific to KHRC, so not all contract administrators send out this type of letter. I'm sure there is some kind of notification, but we refer to ours as the 210-day notice letter. This letter provides you with lots of important details regarding your upcoming rent adjustment. And then it also tells you that action is required on the part of the OA. So when you see one of these letters come through your work center, just know there's something that needs to be done. And we're going to talk about all of that. Where do you find this letter? In Procorem. All rent adjustment communication and document exchange will take place in the work center. So this is not just your rent adjustments, but everything that we exchange back and forth is in Procorem. We'll talk a little bit about Procorem and where to find things here coming up. During the rent adjustment, we will create a new folder for you for this year, for whatever effective date that your rent adjustment is. That folder is going to be labeled with your effective date, and it'll also tell you the fiscal year. So when you're looking around, you'll see lots of folders in there, so you'll want to find the one that is the most current for this year. Okay, there's a lot going on this screen. So Procorem can be a little overwhelming if you're new to it and not sure how to find things. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit about Procorem, but if anyone wants a little bit more one-on-one, I am more than happy. Just call any of our finance officers up and we can talk you through or walk you through where to find things in Procorem and how to use it. The screen that you're looking at now, when you're trying to find this letter, you'll go in and click Files on the left side of your screen. From there, you'll see a lot of file folders listed, and you'll want to find rent adjustments. From there, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to look for the folder that's labeled with the current effective date. You'll click inside that folder. From there, you're going to see all of the documents that are related to that rent adjustment for that year. That's where you're going to upload. That's where we will upload as well. Okay, so let's talk about that letter a little bit, and we'll dissect all the text on here. So this letter is going to tell you when your effective date is, and it actually says anniversary date. So it's really the effective date. We're going to give you the month, day, and year that these rents are going to be adjusted. We're going to tell you that if your property is due for a rent comparability study, that the contract rents are going to be adjusted to the market. We're going to tell you that if you're not due for an RCS, or if an RCS is not a requirement of the current HAP contract, then you may be eligible to receive the automatic operating cost adjustment factor. That's a mouthful. That's the OCAF. And that would be, increase would go into effect on the anniversary date. So we don't really know right off the bat what you're going to be eligible for. So we're going to send you this letter just giving you that information. Then we're going to tell you that at approximately 150 days prior to your anniversary date, we're going to send you a certification letter. And the letter is going to tell you what your adjusted rents will be. This second half right here is going to be discussed in part 2 of this training. So we're going to talk about everything that happens before that 150 days. Okay, that letter is also going to tell you that action is required. So the due date for all required rent adjustment documents is about 165 days before your effective date. Pay attention to that date, it's important. If we don't receive information from you by that date, we're going to keep bugging you. And you know, we're pretty good at that, so nobody wants to hear from us every day. So pay attention to that date. That date is the day that you need to submit all of your rent adjustment documents to us, which is what we're going to talk about here pretty soon. Okay, so on your letters, the second half of that letter is going to have a lot of information. So if your property has a UA, a utility allowance, and has an RCS requirement, this is what your letter is going to look like. Each letter is going to have the rent adjustment checklist that you have to review, complete, and return. Each letter is going to have the property contact form that you also have to review, complete, and return. So for properties with an RCS requirement, we're going to give you some details about it. So we're going to tell you when the existing RCS expires. So right now, this is just our blank template. So there's no dates in here, but we will fill in the date. If you have an RCS, we're going to tell you when it expires. We will also tell you if a new RCS is required. So that's really important because that's going to trigger another series of things that the owner agent will need to complete. The next thing it's going to tell you about your rent comparability study is exactly when it needs to be submitted to us. So HUD has some very specific deadlines and guidelines when submitting a rent comparability study. So the due date that we give you falls in the middle of these two dates. And again, there's no dates there, obviously, but we'll tell you 2 dates that has to be submitted between. Next is going to be, and I noticed my numbering is off here. That's interesting. Okay, so next, if you have a utility allowance at your property, we will tell you when the last time your baseline was completed. And we will also tell you if you are due for another baseline. If you are due for another baseline, this is another really important thing to pay attention to. Utility baselines are one of the most common reasons these rent adjustments can be delayed because we know there's a lot involved in collecting all of this data. So we're encouraging you, if you're due for a baseline, start collecting that tenant release forms right away and get your request into the utility company as soon as possible. So if that baseline is required, we're going to tell you that you need to complete and upload the baseline spreadsheet, and the supporting documentation needs to be collected and provided as well. This last bullet point here is going to tell you the exact data range that you need to request from the utility company. Okay, so all of this you're going to see if you're due for a baseline. If you're not, you're simply going to see the utility allowance factor. So we'll tell you when your baseline was and that this year the UA will be adjusted by the factor. I know that's a lot of information. So I'm going to take just a minute and see if there's any questions about any of that before we move on.
You know, Sarah, we I just posted one to the entire audience, but I want to just pop up and say, yeah, there is a lot of information on here, and I know there's a lot of acronyms that we use. And so I did post the link to HUD's website where you can find HUD specific acronyms. But if you want a more comprehensive list with ours and HUD's, send us an email. I put our email in the chat as well, section8finance@kshousing.org. We have that list, but this webinar PowerPoint won't be available. We're recording it, so the recording of the presentation will be, but the PowerPoint will not. So just give us an email send us an email and we'll send you a list of those. But that was the only question I've got so far.
Okay, perfect. So we'll keep moving on. This is the first letter that you have. So we're going to go on to the next letter in your packet. And so that's going to be a rent adjustments with a utility allowance only. And so you'll notice number 1 and 2 are the same. So you also, if you just have a UA, still have to complete the rent adjustment checklist and property contact form. The RCS is not a requirement. We're going to tell you that. So there's no question, do I have one? Do I not? How do I know? We will tell you that in this letter. And then this bottom half is the same as the slide before. We'll give you all the details about when your baseline was last completed and when you need to submit a new one, or if you're going to be eligible to take that factor. And the next one is going to be a rent adjustment with an RCS requirement only. Again, first 2 are the same, so we've got a theme going. Second, again, we will tell you exactly when your current RCS expires and whether or not you're due for a new one. And then your utility, we're going to tell you if you even have one of these at your property. So if it says NA, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, now for rent adjustments at properties without a UA or a RCS requirement, this is what your letter will look like. You have to complete the rent adjustment checklist, the property contact form, and then the next 2 don't apply to your property at all. These are pretty simple. Okay, so I've got another spot for questions. I feel like I'm stopping often for questions. Jackie?
That's okay. Everyone, it's pretty quiet so far, so okay, keep rolling.
Okay, hopefully this all is making sense. We will keep going. So as you noticed, all 4 of those letters include the rent adjustment checklist and the property contact form. That's going to be really the meat of our presentation today. We're going to talk about that checklist. What are you going to check on there? What are you going to submit? So please, at any time, if you have questions, definitely type those into the box. All right, so this checklist is actually a form that we created. It helps you guys and it helps us to make sure that we process your rent adjustment timely, efficiently, and accurately. So every property, again, is required to complete this form. And I will tell you, you've probably noticed that that checklist has gone through a lot of revisions. And so each time, if you've got multiple properties maybe that you manage, you may see a different form of that checklist. We really want to encourage you to use the one that is uploaded to your work center because that form has changed before. And if you fill one out using one maybe that you had on file, we'll probably ask you to fill out the newest one. So always make sure you fill out the one that's in the work center. Okay, now to the nitty-gritty of that checklist, debt service. Okay, debt service is a big one. This directly affects the contract rent calculation. There's another piece in here in the checklist that we'll go over which also directly affects your rent calculation. So it's important that we have this information, and it's why it's the first thing on the checklist. You are required to submit documentation to verify the amount of debt service that your property has. Now, not all properties have debt service, and if you don't, you don't. If you do, the documentation must include the principal that you pay, the interest that you pay, and MIP, which is mortgage insurance premium. Not all loans have MIP. Some do and some don't. So we encourage you to send us two forms of documentation. One is an amortization schedule, and the other is a mortgage statement. Sometimes the AM schedule or amortization schedule does not show the amount of MIP that you pay, and so the mortgage statement should give us that information. So if you're in doubt, send us both. Send us an AM schedule and a mortgage statement. If you only send one, there's a chance we may ask you for a second documentation. Okay, the next thing on here is really for us, but I want you to know what we're looking at when we look at your debt service. So we're looking at the 1 year prior to your effective date. And I'm not sure I could really explain to you why we're using 1 year prior. We just have to follow the HUD guidelines, and that's what it is. So we're going to look at your effective date, and if you've got an 8/1/22, we're going to take your debt service that was in effect from 8/1 of 21 through July of 22. So it's a year before your effective date. So when you're sending us the documentation, make sure you're looking at that as well to include all of the date range that we're looking for. On the checklist, we encourage you to write any comments that you have. If something has changed in your debt service, if you have refinanced, if the property sold and now there's a new owner and a new loan, tell us about it right here. Tell us about any changes that have happened. After that, you'll mark one of these boxes. So like I said, some properties don't have any debt service, so you'll just check this box. The second box, you're telling us that you are going to or have uploaded a mortgage statement or amortization schedule. Number 3, I haven't talked about yet, and I'll touch on this briefly. So some of our properties have a rural development loan. If that is the case, if you have an active rural development loan, we want the last approved rural development budget, and that's what you can provide us as debt service. Okay, that concludes debt service, so I'm going to move on to the next item on that checklist, types of units. This one makes my head spin. So there's so many types of units that it can get very confusing. So I wanted to break these down for you a little bit. This is one of the areas on the checklist that we have revised recently in the last month to hopefully make this a little bit easier for you guys and for us. There are 4 types of units that could be at your property. And HUD requires all Section 8 properties to account for all unit types at your property. Those 4 are contract revenue, contract non-revenue, non-contract revenue, and non-contract non-revenue. Your contract units, these two up here, are your Section 8 units. These are the units that we are calculating rent for. Your other ones are not Section 8 units. We're going to break this down into a little bit more detail. So your contract revenue units, these are covered under your HAP contract, eligible to receive subsidy. We adjust the rents of these every year. And this is a list of all of the places that those rents or rent potential is accounted for. Couple of notes about these. You can switch a contract non-revenue unit with prior HUD approval. There's no subsidy with non-revenue units, however. Actually, I think that was supposed to be on my next slide. You can also switch a contract non-contract to a non-contract through a HAP contract bifurcation or an opt-out. Honestly, I think these notes got a little bit messed up on me, so sorry about that. Like I said, this makes my head spin, so I don't blame you if you can't keep up. So I'll try to go slow and answer any questions as you have them. The next one is going to be contract non-revenue units. So these units are covered under your HAP contract, but they're not eligible to receive subsidy. A lot of times these units are used as manager and employee units, offices, or storage. If you have a non-revenue unit at your property, you have to tell us what you're using it for. And even though rent's not collected, the potential for rent is still accounted for in all of these places. So we see these a lot. Your contract revenue units are going to be those units that your tenants are in. Those are the ones that are rented. Your contract non-revenue units are going to be an office or a manager, storage, things like that. Okay, now we're going to move on to non-contract units, and we'll start with the revenue. So these contracts are not, the units are not covered under your HAP contract. They're not eligible to receive Section 8 subsidy. However, oftentimes these non-contract revenue units are covered under a different program. So I know a lot of our owner agents have either 236 or tax credit. So most of the time, if we see a non-contract revenue unit in more than one, it's because you have another type of subsidy program. We still have to account for them. The non-contract rent potential also directly affects your contract rent calculation. So even though you have non-contract units at your property, we still need to know what amount of rent that you're charging or what potentially you could charge. Non-contract, non-revenue. These are not covered under your HAP contract, not eligible to receive subsidy, not typically covered under any other program, and you do not collect rent. So these, again, could be storages or offices. Sorry, I just got a slow network connection. Jackie, I want to make sure you can still hear me.
Oh, there you are, actually. So I was going to say, we can hear you, but you were frozen for a second. So, but now you're back.
Yeah, I have a pop-up that said slow network connection. So sorry, guys.
So we could still hear you, but you were just frozen for a second, but you're good now.
Okay, let me know, interrupt me, or I don't know how to, if something happens here. Okay, so we'll keep going. Yeah, these units, non-contract, non-revenue, you're not collecting any rent, offices, manager unit, storage, whatever. It doesn't matter to us. You tell us what you're using them for. We still have to account for that rent potential. So even though you're not collecting rent, there is a potential to collect rent, which is why we're asking you what the rents are for some of those units. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, changing the status of a unit. Regardless of the unit type, changes to the unit status must be approved by HUD. So if you have a non-contract, non-revenue unit, and you want just to have a regular market unit at your property, you want to change it to revenue, it has to go through HUD. I know it seems a little silly because they're not part of your HAP contract. That's just the guidelines that we have to follow. Anytime there's a change to any of the status on a unit, HUD has to give their blessing. Non-contract units cannot become contract units. The one exception to that is an 8BB transfer. So I'm not going to go into what that is, but if you have questions about that, please reach out afterwards. A contract unit can become non-contract units, also through a bifurcation, but you can never go back to a contract unit. Once gone, always gone. So once you change a contract unit to non-contract, only can happen through a bifurcation. You'll never get it back. Non-revenues can change to revenues and vice versa with HUD approval. That's a lot easier to accomplish. And we'll talk about how to ask HUD approval a little later. All right, so back to the checklist about unit types. So we're going to, and this is fairly new, last month, we're going to provide you now a screenshot of your last rent schedule. And it's going to show you exactly what contract units you have and exactly what non-contract units you have, and then if they're revenue or non-revenue. You have to look at that, let us know if it's correct, and if it's not, make sure you tell us. You can mark up the page, cross out, just make sure it's clear. Tell us what's not correct on there. If you have rent amounts that are on the last rent schedule that are not accurate, you need to tell us. If we do not hear from you, I want you to pay close attention to this note right here. For all non-contract units, KHRC will set the monthly rent potential to match the Section 8 contract rent potential unless informed otherwise. And that's also new. So please remember that if you have rents on non-contract units that you want to tell us what they are, tell us what they are. Otherwise, we're going to set it at the same as your contract unit rent. Hopefully that makes sense. That's the end of the non-contract and contract units. So I'm going to take a second and make sure there's no questions. You can let everything kind of fall back into place because that one is, I get tongue-tied with that one sometimes. Jackie, are there any questions?
You know, we have a couple, and I want to bring, well, both of them up, but I thought one was like more of a specific question to a property, but I think actually it could go for a lot of properties that have RD loans. So one of our question, and I think this is what this question means. So in terms of rent, this rent adjustment schedule is only refers to people living on the property. So it's not including the sense of renting storage or office space. And I think Kevin's asking if we need to figure in if there's if they have a commercial space that they're renting out, a garage or a storage space, and those are included. I think if that's what Kevin's asking.
Okay, I'm not sure if I quite understand, but I heard commercial space. That is actually a completely separate than your units. So if I'm understanding right, if any of the properties have space or units at their project where they're renting it out to commercially for a business of some sort, contact me after this because that has to go through HUD directly. If what I'm understanding is that what we've been talking about on those units, if you have units at your property that you just use for storage for your property or an office or something, those still need to be accounted for on your rent schedule, and a rent has to be listed on the rent schedule, even if you're not charging rent. So if we just have to have whatever that potential is to collect. I don't know if that answered the question though.
I know I kind of asked for clarification on that one, but and Sarah, you're frozen. I don't know if you want to try turn your camera off and back on to see if that helps. Looks like you're about to take a drink of water. And another question that was asked by John about some RD loans have mortgage, have interest subsidy on their for their loans. And so if you are RD property and in a Section 8 that's going through a rent adjustment, Sarah, correct me if wrong, we'll contact Rural Development personally and request your approved budget and include it when we do your rent adjustment. So that will be included.
We will, but we also encourage you to send it to us if you have a copy, because sometimes there can be a little bit of a delay and just whoever can get it to us first. But yes, we will reach out to Rural Development if you have one of those loans and ask directly for that from them.
Oh, and I just got a note that my camera was frozen too, so I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on.
Was there another question?
Yes, there's another question. Can you explain the part again where you said once the status changes from contract to non-contract, it cannot go back?
Yes, so let me see if I can get back to that slide. Okay, so contract units. can become non-contract units through a contract bifurcation. So we had a property recently that had a certain amount of units covered under their HAP contract, and very lengthy process, at least a year for a contract bifurcation, and that just means that we're removing some units from that HAP contract. So they went from one number to another number of contract units. They will never be able to get those units back for Section 8 subsidy. I mean, the physical unit is there and can be used as market units or whatever they want. But as far as the Section 8 subsidy is concerned, you will not ever get that back if you change a contract unit to a non-contract. Did that answer or help clarify?
I think so. And apologize to the audience. I think everyone can still hear us from what I've gotten back feedback, but I think our cameras are frozen, so I've been turning mine off and back on to hopefully see if that helps.
Yeah, I'm noticing that too. Well, I'm hoping everyone can still hear and see my screen. So I'm going to keep moving on. All right. Okay, so the next thing on the checklist is additional charges. This is another area that we've changed recently. So additional charges are going to be anything that you charge the tenant for, optional. I will stress an optional charge that is not included in their contract rent. So those types of things must be included on your rent schedule. And that rent schedule is also not only supposed to have all of your information, but it's really used for your tenant. They can look at that and like, okay, what's included in my rent? What do I have? So a lot of the common types of charges are going to be cable, satellite TV, additional appliances. We think we've seen like a freezer, extra freezer, something like that. Parking spaces, additional ones. These would be anything that the tenant has the option to pay for. Cannot be anything required. So we will provide you a screenshot of your additional charges from the last rent schedule or from the last rent adjustment. You're going to have to look at that and let us know if it's still accurate. If you need to make a change or add a charge, we have to send a formal request to HUD, and we're going to tell you how to do that later on. So this is the checklist, how that looks, and so you're just going to confirm the following information is correct. If it's not, tell us what's not right about it. Okay, next on the checklist is SAM. This is a big one. This is one of the things that can really hold up and delay this process. And I know that I'm sure a lot of you have experienced some trouble with this system. So SAM stands for System for Award Management. It's a federal government owned and operated free website. And a SAM registration is required for any business to do federal contracting. So as KHRC, we contract with HUD to administer your contract with them. We are required to have a SAM registration every year. Also for nonprofits to receive federal grants, and for Section 8 property owners to receive HAP funds. So this is why it's required, because we want to pay you. And so we will not complete your rent adjustment until we have an active SAM registration. So a couple things about those. In order to get one of these registrations, you have to have a DUNS number. Every one of our properties have one. If you're experiencing issues or trouble or changes, reach out and we can troubleshoot with you. The registration that we needs to be in the owner's name. Whatever ownership entity owns a property, that's the name that the SAM registration needs to be in. These registrations expire every year. So it's important to track that date. An active registration must be provided before we will execute your rent schedule. So that's happened sometimes for a lot of different reasons that we can't execute your rent schedule because there was a delay with the SAM. On the checklist, we're going to tell you a date. We're going to give you a date. And that date, please pay close attention to that, because if your registration expires before the date that we provide you right here, we're going to kick it back and say you've got to re-register before we can move on. That date is 150 days before your rent adjustment effective date. So as you're tracking your SAM registrations, just keep that in mind, that you'll always want to have an active registration by the 150 days before your effective date. Okay, so you have to give us a screenshot of that SAM registration. Now I know that website has recently changed. I'm not sure if we like it better or not. We also have access to that SAM system. So it can be a little bit complicated, and if you are having trouble or just need some help figuring out what to do or how to print off a screenshot, just call us up and we'll walk you through that. The screenshot has to provide the owner's name, the status, so it should say active, and the expiration date. So we need to see, because we're checking that as soon as we get it back from you. If you can't get us an active registration by the due date, then just tell us. Tell us what's going on. Say, I had to resubmit, or new DUNS number, or system kicked back, or I'm working on it, just don't have it yet, something. Just tell us anything in the space on the checklist here. Okay, that's SAM. Next, rent comparability study. So we talked a little bit about this. The rent comparability study is HUD's tool for estimating market rents. And your HAP contract is going to determine whether or not you have this requirement. If you do have this requirement and you're due for a brand new RCS, you're not eligible for the OCAF. You still have to complete the checklist. You still have to do the property contact form and send it all in to us. How do you know if you have this? We talked about this earlier. So the 210 letter is going to tell you if you have this requirement. It'll tell you the expiration date for the existing one. We'll tell you if you're required to submit a new one this year, when to submit it, and then we're going to tell you the rents will be adjusted by the market. What do you do if a new RCS is required? You need to engage a Kansas certified appraiser immediately. These appraisers that are doing these studies often book way out, and it takes a while for them to actually come out to your property. So engage those appraisers immediately. We can give you a list of Kansas appraisers that you can choose from if you don't already have a list of names. You'll want to inform us of the date the study was or is scheduled to be completed, and you're going to do that on the rent adjustment checklist. Excuse me, just a minute. And then you're going to upload the report to us and the cover letter and the checklist to Procorem by the due date on your letter. And so we're going to talk more about RCSs and what happens after you submit them in part 2. So this is about as far as that I'm going to take the rent comparability study for now. If you have questions before part 2, then please reach out and we'll certainly get those answered for you. On the checklist, you have to complete this regardless of if you have this requirement. So it's hopefully pretty self-explanatory what you need to mark. So it probably, if you don't have one of these, it's not going to apply. A new RCS is not due this year, or a new RCS is due this year, and then tell us when it will be completed, and then any comments that you have. And the next item is going to be set up similar to the rent comparability study. So if your project has a UA, your tenants pay all or some of the utilities. If you do not have a UA, all utilities are included in your contract rent. Again, how do you know? Your 210 letter is going to tell you all of these things. I'm probably not going to read those, but I'll let it sit here for just a minute. So even if you don't have this requirement, you're going to fill out the checklist. There's a box for you to fill out right here. So we're going to remind you how often the baselines need to be completed, and then also tell you that if you want to do a baseline, even if you're not required that year, that you can. And you'll just tell us that in one of these selections here. Now, quick reminder that I think it was our first webinar we did was on utility allowances. And so we have that webinar available on KHRC's website. So I highly encourage you to watch that if you have a baseline due this year, or even just a UA in general. Very helpful, a lot of good information in there. So I encourage you to watch that. All right, the last part of the rent adjustment checklist, just a couple of things, nothing that you need to complete, some reminders about signature requirements. property contacts, and a little blurb about Procorem. We're going to talk about property contacts and Procorem shortly. Signature requirements, we're going to talk a little bit more in part 2. Okay, I think I've got one more slide before questions. So requesting HUD approval, this goes back to when we talked about non-contract, contract units, revenue, non-revenue, and additional charges. If you want to if you need to make a change to any of those things, send an email to HUD. And this is exactly how you need to do it to make sure that it gets to the right place. So HUD is flooded with emails from owners, from contract administrators, just from HUD, everywhere. And so if you follow this format, it's a lot more likely that you'll get a timely response. So of course, it'll be from you, and you're going to want to send that to your HUD account executive and then the HUD branch chief. And this email here is a general mailbox for this region, mfsouthwest@hud.gov. You will also want to include the Section 8 finance email. That's very important because if we're included on those emails, we can help track it and follow up and facilitate whatever needs to happen. The subject line, you want to put your contract number here, your HAP contract number, list your property name, and then HUD approval needed. And you can say cable fee or revenue status, excuse me, or whatever it is that you're emailing them about. And then in the body of your email, you're going to tell them what you need, include any attachments that you have. Highly also suggest that you follow up every 1 to 2 weeks so that it doesn't kind of get pushed to the bottom of the pile. So it's always kind of top of mind as they're working through that approval. If you don't know who your account executive is, really easy for us to look up. So just reach out and we can find that for you and provide the contact information. Okay. Questions. We're going to talk about the property contact form next. But are there any questions about any of the rent adjustment checklist items?
Yeah, we have a couple. Well, one really, and then a great reminder that John put in here. But for the first question, I don't think we have a great answer for you, but it's about the SAM registration. And the question is there a way to file SAM registration on a specific date each year? For example, if your SAM registration date is January 1st and you resubmit on the 31st, the new date, effective date is 12/31. So every year has a different date unless you register on the exact same date every year. And that's accurate. So if you register it a little bit earlier or a little bit later than you're supposed to, the new date the next year is going to be whatever day you registered. I don't think, unless you put a calendar reminder yourself and do it on the exact same day. But there's not another way, I don't think, in SAM to have that auto renew for you or anything.
No, I don't think so. That would be nice. That would be real nice. But no, the best option really is to put a reminder on your calendar somewhere and keep track of, what that 150-day date that'll be on the checklist. Pay attention to that, because if it expires after that, then that's a problem.
Yeah. And then another good reminder that John had was for those of you who have tax credit properties that are listening to this also, and I know we talked about it in utility allowance training that Sarah gave a few months ago, that utility allowances are also due for tax credit properties every year. And we invited, typically our presentations are only for the PBCA, the Section 8 properties. However, for the utility allowance, we did invite tax credit properties to join that one, because you can apply that same spreadsheet, that same UAB, that baseline, to tax credit properties as well. So, and that's another reason why you might just want to submit a baseline every year and not take the factor if you are a tax credit and Section 8, because you'd be doing that baseline for the tax credit properties anyway. But good reminder there that you'll still need to do that only if you're a tax credit property. And then the last question I have right now is, does every property have a HUD account executive? Every Section 8 property?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you do. I will tell you that person can change often. So if you're not sure who it is, like I said, I can look that up for you very easily. But yes, every property is assigned a HUD account executive, and every account executive has a branch chief, which is supervisor. So yes.
Okay. Awesome. That's all I've got so far.
All
Thanks.
right, moving along. Maybe. Okay. Property contact form. So again, this is a form that is specific to us that we've created. The HUD Secure system doesn't always provide the most current information. So we want to make sure that we collect that straight from you every year so that we have the most current information at all times. So that form is completed at every rent adjustment, even if nothing changed last year. So I know that's a little annoying, but hopefully it won't take you very long to fill it out. Every year that form needs to be filled out. And it looks a little different now. So again, we've revised this one. So if you have one of these property contact forms, like just on your file or in your files, throw them away. Please use the one that we will upload to you at the time of the rent adjustment. Because honestly, we'll probably make another revision to this at some point. And really the goal is to just constantly make sure it's easier for you guys and for us. The top portion now of the property contact form is going to be pre-filled for you. This information is coming directly from the HUD site, HUD Secure Systems. So we're going to tell you who the owner is. We're going to tell you what type of entity it is, nonprofit, corporation, LLC, things like that. We're going to tell you whose name is listed as the contact for the owner, and then the management agent. So all of this information is going to come straight from the HUD Secure Systems, and we're going to put it in here, and you're going to let us know, yay or nay. If nay, give us the information that is correct. Tell us what's wrong with it. Maybe there's something, that happened and the secure system didn't get updated. I don't know. Just tell us what's not right. If it is right, that's fantastic. The second half is blank, and this is what you're going to have to fill out. So there's two sections, owner contacts and management contacts. We want you to provide us at least one. If you have more than that, great. If not, that's okay. Contacts for the owner of the project. Please include their title, phone number, and email. It's very important that we always have contact information for the owners of these properties. Now, KHRC requires one owner contact to have access to Procorem. So I know a lot of times as management agents, like you guys are doing all the work, and we get that. But we require at least one owner to be in Procorem at all times, even if they don't have anything to do with the day-to-day. And so it's up to you. You can decide, but this is what that area is over here. Just tell us if that's the person that's going to have Procorem access. If you provide one of these and nothing is checked, or if they all say no, we're still going to add someone to Procorem. Bottom half, management agent contacts. Tell us who does what, and email and phone number. Some of our properties are owner managed, so if you have the same person in multiple places, that's okay. Just list their information everywhere that it belongs. If changes have been made to the ownership organization over the last year since your last rent adjustment, you will need to file or submit a 2530 to HUD. You'll also need to submit that to us. We have to have a 2530 for all of the current owners of the property at all times. So if changes have been made, make sure you submit that. That's another big task that we're not going to get into. I will touch on that more next time. I do have some resources for anyone who's experiencing any difficulty with that 2530. It can be very challenging. So I have some resources. If you'd like, please reach out and I'd be happy to provide those for you. Procorem users. So this is a little new also. This is at the end of that property contact form now. So we're giving you right at the start, at the 210 letter start, is a snip of the current Procorem users. And so this is just an example here of what that's going to look like. So your job is to look at that and tell us, okay, you can cross out like, okay, this person's no longer there. Yes, they're there. Just leave it alone. Any changes that need to be made, now's your time. Now's your time. You also have time later too to make changes, but it's very helpful if we can get all of this information up front. So that part is new. Questions about any of the Procorem contacts or property contact form?
Yes, just one that this goes for any changes, but there's a question about if a property has converted from an LLC to an LP, but the HUD secure system has not been updated. Is it the owner's responsibility to see that HUD has this corrected?
Yes and no. I want to say, so we can come at this as a team. So if you know something's not right in the HUD system, reach out to Section 8 Finance first or post it on your work center. Let me see, or let one of our finance officers see if we can figure out why it's not updated, what the change was that took place. And then, we may tell you, okay, you need to contact your HUD account executive for this, or we may say, okay, we're going to take this because it looks like maybe there's a few other things that didn't get updated or need to be corrected, and then we can take it and we'll include you in our correspondence with HUD. So yes and no. I think we prefer just to come directly to us, and then we'll help you make sure we get to the right people to update these things.
Perfect. That was the only one I've got so far.
Okay. All right. So what is next? So we've talked about the rent adjustment checklist, talked about the property contact form, 210-day letter. So we're giving you all of that 210 days before your rent adjustment effective date. You got to fill all that information in, register SAM, collect whatever documents that you need to provide for this rent adjustment. Get all of that together. You're going to create a PDF. That's really important. Those are the only file types that we like. Actually, that's not true. That's the majority of the file types that we like. Your utility baselines will be in spreadsheet form. All of these documents, so your rent adjustment checklist, property contact form, any additional items that you have, turn them into a PDF, and then label them all according to the Procorem file naming matrix. This is one of our pet peeves. So I'm going to show you what that looks like on the next screen. So after that, you will upload to Procorem on or before your due date. What is that Procorem file naming? There's no HUD guideline on how to name these documents, but for us, we really appreciate it when you follow our naming format. It does help us with our internal processes here. And so generally, anything that's happening in Procorem is going to look like this. Everything will start with PBCA, and then your property name, exactly how it appears in Procorem. That's how we're going to label it, and how we would like you to do as well. And then there's going to be a date. That date is the upload date. So if you're providing the rent adjustment checklist to us today, you will date it today. And then whatever that document name is. So here's some examples. So PBCA, Happy Hills Apartment, today's date, what is it? Rent adjustment checklist, SAM, amortization schedule. And so anything that goes into Procorem will follow the same format. Special claims have a very specific naming format. So anything that you want to give to us, please follow this. It's very, very much appreciated. Okay, now you're ready to upload into Procorem. You've got your files collected, they're labeled correctly. Now we're going to upload. So you need to log into Procorem. Please log into Procorem. Please do not upload documents through your email. I'm going to touch on that in the next slide also. So log in, you're going to select the appropriate project and enter the work center. So I know a lot of you may have more than one property that you manage. So make sure you're in the right work center. And then you're going to click on Files, Rent Adjustments, and then find the current year rent adjustment folder. So here's a bigger snip of what that's going to look like, and I touched on that earlier. From there, you're going to click the Upload Files button. The next thing that will show up is this screen down here. So you're going to find your documents that you want to upload to us. You can drag and drop, or you just click this button and it'll take you to a file window, and you find your documents and upload it that way. Again, please do not upload documents through your email. So what happens with that is, you all know Procorem generates tons of emails. So what you can do is actually, when you get one of those emails, is reply to it like a regular email and attach. And what happens is it pushes it into the work center, but it does not put it into any folder. So we don't like that. It may be easier for you, and if it is, I'm sorry, but please go directly to Procorem when uploading documents. It makes it a lot easier. We can track those documents and who uploaded and the dates they came in. So into Procorem, upload, select it, and you can enter a comment if you want. There'll be a comment box at the very bottom. You don't have to. The comments show up on the email notification. So if you want to upload a document and have a comment and we see it in the email, go ahead and do that. If not, leave it blank. Click upload right here. We do use the comment section on our uploads because when we provide you something, we want you to see a little comment about it in your email. So you don't have to go directly to Procorem to see what it is. Okay, tasks. So we're going to talk quite a bit about tasks because we set a lot of them, as you know, and I'm sure they probably get on your nerves a little bit. So we're going to tell you a little bit about why we do this and what it all means. So the tasks, just like files, you'll click on the left side of your screen, and what that's going to do is open up a window that shows you all of the open tasks for this particular property. This is just an example of the rent adjustment tasks that are created. So speaking of those, every rent adjustment at the start, when we provide you the 210 letter, we're also going to set 4 tasks right off the bat. And so those tasks are going to be the rent adjustment checklist and the property contact form. These are your tasks, your responsibility to mark them off when it's completed. The other 2 tasks that you see our KHRC review of those 2 documents. So anytime you see a task that says KHRC review, that's our task. So we try to, we have these reminders, these tasks for us so that we can stay on top of everything that we have to process. So usually we'll mark that off after you do within a couple of weeks. I will also tell you that if you don't mark your task off, we'll probably bug you about it. You're going to get an email reminder about it. We'll talk a little bit more about that here as we go on. There may be additional tasks that are set right in the beginning, and that just depends on the type of rent adjustment and the requirements. So we may set a baseline task for you right here, or if there's an RCS, I don't have an example of that, but so that you may have an additional task depending on your requirements. Okay, marking those tasks off. So after you've uploaded the required documentation, you're going to find that corresponding task. So upload and go back into your task with the big window, find what you just did. This box that's circled and highlighted here I think it's gray. You'll go in and you're just going to hover. So you don't want to click, but you're going to hover over that check mark. As soon as it turns green, you're going to click it. What happens is that is you saying, I'm done with this task. The task is going to disappear from the main task window and an email notification will be generated. So that's how you mark that task off, is just go in and click. So a little bit about those emails that get sent out. Like I mentioned before, sometimes you probably feel flooded with Procorem emails. So do we. So we feel your pain. There isn't a way to adjust the amount of emails you get. You either get them all or you get none. And that's kind of unfortunate, but that's just the way the system is set up. So as you know, that Procorem is going to generate emails for almost everything that's done in the work center. And that's for a reason. We want everyone to know what's going on so that there's no chance that something's going to get missed. The system generates overdue and reminder emails for all tasks. So if you don't complete yours by the due date, or if we don't complete ours by the due date, everyone's going to get an email. And those are irritating when you get those reminder or overdue emails. So just stay on top of it. Remember, know your due date. We can adjust those tasks at any time. All we ask is for just some communication. So if you're getting like overdue every day, and you're working on a particular thing that you just can't get us yet, tell us. Say, hey, can we get that extended for a week or 2? I'm working on it, but it's not here yet. Absolutely. We'll go in and adjust your tasks so you don't have email after email after email every day. We don't want to make this worse for you. So whatever we can do to make it more helpful. There are are some things that are just the way they are, which is lots of emails. Okay, so you'll get an email every day if those tasks are not completed after the due date, and nobody really wants that. So just watch that due date or let us know so we can push it out for you. Questions?
I don't have any. Everyone loves Procorem, so they don't have any questions.
I love questions though, so don't hesitate if something comes up. I love answering questions. Okay, well, we'll move on. And actually, we're getting ready to wrap up here pretty quickly. Let's see what time are we? 11:05. Okay, we're good. So what do we do next? What do you do next? You have uploaded and marked off your task. Now you wait to hear from us. You're done, almost, or for now, I should say. So we're going to receive an email after you upload and after you mark that task off. So what happens is that we have our finance officers who are going to look at all of that information that you've sent us. We're going to begin processing your rent adjustment, and we will reach out if we need something else from you. So we want you to remember, even though you've uploaded your documents, marked off the task, it doesn't mean that you're done. You're just on hold almost. So it's important to watch Procorem for follow-up. And we will follow up, as you know, if there's something missing or if we need more information from you. And so if that happens and we do find that we need information from you, this sounds really awful, like a deficient package, but it just means we don't have everything we need to complete processing. So if that happens, we're going to create a post in Procorem. And that post is going to identify exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it by. So maybe there's another, maybe it's your SAM that you didn't have at the time that you were ready to submit the checklist. So we'll reach out and we'll say, okay, in order to finish, we need SAM. And then we're going to set another task with a new due date. And so we expect a response to all rent adjustment follow-up posts. So we know that you guys are working hard, and please know that we know that. You manage a lot of properties, and some of you are managing multiple properties. As you know, the HUD world is complicated, a lot of requirements. So we understand that you have a lot going on. So we're not trying to bug you, but we do want to make sure that we can maintain constant communication. So we want to know if there's something missing or if we're asking something. All we want from you is just a quick reply in post form that says whatever it is, whatever the status is, either the information that we're asking for, or I need a week, I can't get it together right now for whatever reason, or there's a delay because of this or that. Just tell us, and we get it. And so we'll just make notes in our file, and then we'll follow up with you like in another week and say, okay, how's it going? We will keep bugging you if you don't respond. So if we are posting, asking for an update and we're not getting anything from you, we're going to continue to ask. Squeaky wheel, I suppose, gets fixed at some point. Okay. Common errors and reasons for delay. These are just a few. Not uploading all the required documents at the time or at the time of your due date. Not marking off the task. So you may upload your documents, but forget the task, and then all of a sudden you're getting all these overdue reminders, or that's a common error. Marking off the task, but not uploading documents. We've seen that occasionally. So we'll see an email notification that says this person is marked off the task, but there's no upload to go with it. Uploading to the wrong Procorem folder. So that happens a lot. So that's why I showed early on, and we can go back to that screen if we need to, where to click to get into the right folder. So you got to make sure you're clicking into the right folder before you upload. Some reasons for delay would be an RCS if you didn't engage your appraiser, right away. They may be a ways out before they can get you the report. Baselines really cause delays, and it's not so much anyone's fault, just either the tenants don't cooperate in getting their release forms, or trouble with the utility companies, and they're slow to get you the data. Anybody that's got a baseline coming up, just expect delays. So the sooner you can start, the better. sooner you can start, the better, definitely. SAM registrations is another big delay. Okay, so what happens if we have everything that we need? It's fantastic. So if you've provided all the documents and there's nothing else that we need from you, that's fantastic, like I said. If you provide everything and then there's a little bit of back and forth, like, okay, we still need this, and you provide it to us, great. At some point, we're going to have a complete package from you. And when that happens, we're going to finish processing that adjustment, calculate your new contract rents, and prepare your rent schedule. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes after you send us your documents. Our finance officers are constantly busy processing, well, not only rent adjustments, but everything else that is going on with these contracts. And then at about 150 days before your effective date, we are required to send you rent adjustment documents for your review and signature. So at this point, after you've sent us everything that you need, we are processing and we're plugging information in and creating your rent schedule and figuring out what your new rent is and how it is going to be adjusted. And then we are going to send you documents to look at. The three most common documents that you will receive from us are the CERT for SIG, RS for SIG, and R for SIG. So the CERT for SIG is an OCAF certification. SIG is signature. RS for SIG is rent schedule for signature. R for R is reserve for replacement for signature. So these are the most common three documents that we'll send out. So what are these documents and what do you have to do next? That's a big question, and it's going to take a lot of time to answer and go over. So that's going to be continued. We will talk next time in part 2 exactly what this document is, what it means, what it's telling you, what you need to look at, who needs to sign it. Same with your rent schedule. We're going to dissect that rent schedule and go over the entire thing, because when we send that to you, not only are we wanting you to sign it, but we want you to review it as well. And I know we've gotten a lot of questions about this R for SIG, the reserve for replacement. So I'll definitely take quite a bit of time in the next training to talk about what that is. And I think we kind of threw it at you guys. You started to get this and you're like, I've never seen it. I don't know what it is. So we'll take that, and I want to make sure we explain exactly what that is and what you need to do. And we'll do that all next time. So that actually concludes part 1. What are we at? An hour and 15 minutes? Maybe I talked too fast. Maybe I just didn't have as much information as last time. But I want to take some time and see if there are any questions.
As you said, yes, we still have about 15 minutes left, so I'll wait to see if any pop in. We did get one after about Procorem before we move on to another topic. Some owner agents seem to get overdue notices when KHRC has not completed their task. What is the reason behind that? Or there's probably no reason.
Yeah, that is, we're all human and we miss things sometimes. And that is something that sometimes happens, is that we have a task that's assigned to us. We do the job that we're supposed to on this side, and then we forget to go in and mark that off. So there's no excuse other than, you know, that it's just a mistake that we make. So if you see that, call us out on it, definitely. We've had owner agents do that, say, why are we getting this? It looks like it's your task. Yes, you're right, it's our task. So we try very hard to make sure that we are putting in place all of the things that we're expecting from you. So I understand, you know, I'm not just gonna tell you to do all of the stuff and then we're just gonna, you know, not do it. We try really hard to make sure that we make things as easy as possible for you, and you know, marking off those tasks, because we know that you're going to get the email if we don't. So yeah, don't really have a good reason other than sometimes that does happen. So we try to avoid that. But call us out if you see it, please.
So I got a couple of questions, but they're mostly about when part 2 is going to be presented, and about the slideshow. And So I'll kind of go into that. We are recording this webinar today, so it usually takes us between 10 and 14 days to get on our website. The PowerPoint that you guys saw will unfortunately not be available. We're not going to post that, but the recording should be up on our website under the contract administration training webinars in about a couple weeks. We haven't nailed down specifically a date for part 2, but we do want to get it in before Christmas. So we have a specific date in mind, probably the 16th of December, but because we don't want to do it the week of Christmas, but we do want to get it in before, so all the great information that Sarah shared with you today doesn't get completely lost before we move into part 2. So we'll get with our communications team, get it scheduled, and you'll probably hear the next week see blast emails about registering for part 2. I think that's all the questions that we have. A lot of thank yous, Sarah. Great presentation. Information was very helpful. And I think,
yeah, and at any time, if you are in the middle of one of your rent adjustments and you just want a quick reminder on what some of this information means, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. So, and I think you can all see us on your screens now. So Cole, Wasini, and Liz and myself, we're there for any question that you have. So please call, post in your work center. We really are passionate about helping you all understand and submitting things correctly so that it's easy for everyone. So anything that we can do to make it easier for you, we will. We know that you guys are busy, so at some points I'm sure you're tired of seeing our name pop up like, hey, where are you at this? Where are you at this? But behind the scenes, we've got a whole set of things that we're doing on our end, a lot of things that we track and pay close attention to, because we contract with HUD so to do this. So a lot of people involved. So I guess what I'm trying to say, just don't ever hesitate to reach out. We will definitely answer your questions when we can.
Yeah, so a reminder, if you do, we didn't post, we have the handouts in the GoToWebinar control panel now, but we usually will upload those, of course, to your work centers when the process starts. But if you like a list of the acronyms, we didn't supply that, so email the Section 8 Finance email if you'd like a list of the KHRC and HUD acronyms about that too. So, but I think that's it. Thank you for your time and attention today. Have a great rest of the week and a great Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.